based in South Africa. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the Executive Director of the South African Chamber of Commerce Singapore. My name is Kieran Heatley, and being in South Africa, I run the chamber from there remotely, which is quite unusual for a lot of chambers that, I'm based outside of where we are actually set up and the organization was founded. But I actually really wanted to host this webinar with AJ. AJ's been a valued member of the chamber with Purview and Simon, who's also online. And he was speaking about rugby and how he transitioned into the corporate life. And that really resonated with me specifically because I actually was an educator for 12 years. So coming into sort of a startup and the whole corporate space was quite challenging for me, but I really feel that there are a lot of sort of values and skills that you can take from other careers into new careers. And I thought it was really interesting to talk about AJ's sort of journey into that space and what he's achieved and accomplished. Just some housekeeping rules before we start. So please keep yourselves on mute, but raise your hand if you want to ask a question. We'll stop. No worries. This is more of a conversation. It's not our typical webinars, so we hope to keep you all engaged and enjoy the conversation. So I'm just going to give a brief introduction to AJ before he also tells a bit about himself and the companies Purview and Vanloq. So AJ, once a formidable presence on the rugby field, is now making waves in the business world. As a former professional rugby player, he represented the South African national team, the Springboks, and played over 200 first-class matches globally. After retiring from professional sports, AJ channeled his drive and leadership skills into entrepreneurship. He's currently co-founder and commercial director of Vanloq, a workforce solutions-based company in the UK. His transition from rugby pitch to the boardroom exemplifies his ability to achieve the success in diverse arenas. And in his new role, AJ often shares insights from his transition from sports to business, highlighting the parallels between the two fields. He also discusses how discipline, teamwork, and strategic thinking are required in rugby. And this is directly translated into valuable business skills. AJ's experience provides a unique perspective on how athletes can leverage their athletic careers to succeed in business, and drawing parallels that inspire both athletes and entrepreneurs alike. So AJ, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you so much. You hear me fine? Everything okay with my sound?
All good.
Yeah, cool. Hello, everyone. I see old friends and new friends, everyone on here. So just give me a brief moment to talk about my businesses. So Purview, as a start, is a prominent IT services consulting and business solutions firm who's been collaborating with some of the world's largest enterprises on their transformative journeys over almost a decade now. There are many things that Purview does, but I'll just touch on one, and quite exciting actually, AI-powered smart glasses. So what do these things do? And again, just one example, like imagine you're walking into a factory or a warehouse and you've got these glasses on, and instantly you'll have real-time access to inventory levels, product specifications, and assembly instructions without even having to look at a computer. Everything just comes straight through your glasses. So that's just one bit that the glasses do, and one of the things that Purview does. Purview's got a big part, workforce solutions part of their business, based in India, and do a lot of offshoring. And that's kind of where Vanloq taps in. Vanloq is a global workforce solutions business. We're based in Edinburgh, and both or all three of our partners are industry pioneers with many, many years of experience. We've got a cumulative 40 years workforce solutions experience, with deep expertise in managing small to large IT resource and recruitment programs. So Vanloq in the UK and Purview in India. And we, apart from offering all those services in the UK, we use Purview extensively for offshoring recruitment solutions. Just a quick one on the name Vanloq. Some people might enjoy this. Vanloq, because we are like a few of the founders are South African, a few of the founders are Scottish, and Van is a name that's constantly in South African language with the surnames, and the lock, L-O-Q, but the lock, the lake, so Vanloq, almost like the Scottish rugby team currently, who's half South African and half Scottish. That is our business name. So that's just briefly about the two businesses. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, AJ. Yeah, fantastic. If you want to get in touch with AJ with regards to Purview and Vanloq, we will share his contact details after the event. But AJ, maybe you want to talk a little bit about those interesting shirts that you have in the background.
Yeah, it's actually quite new. Firstly, I've never been someone that, when I retired, I said, I'll never be the guy who puts up his jerseys in the bar or his ties and his medals. I've never ever done it. I'm 52 years old, and my partner Sean convinced me over the last 3 months to put this up, because a lot of my work is meeting people online. I'm sitting in Durban, South Africa, and he said, look, it's a good talking point, and actually he's right. So this is quite new. There's 3 jerseys here. The one is full Wars jersey. Simon, you would enjoy this. Simon is Australian, so yes, a bit of Simon's representatives. This is my very first Springbok jersey in 2000 against Wales. And this is Marty Holler. Marty Holler is New Zealand legend. That's his jersey. So these are jerseys that I swapped over the years playing rugby, and I thought I'll put mine in the middle. So it's just a lovely, when you start a conversation online, because it's not in person, is obviously easier, right? You can talk about stuff, but when you're online, you need something to just break the ice. And so we find this works quite well, and I'm quite proud of it as well.
Yeah, I think you should be. I mean, you must be proud to display those. So I'm sure everybody is quite interested in that memorabilia. It's fantastic to see. So AJ, I'm just going to kick off, and maybe if you could give us a bit of an overview on your rugby career, who you played for, etc.
Sure. So like I said, I'm 52 today, or not today, this year, but I was lucky enough to play rugby from childhood. In the older days, rugby was just part of all the school's curriculums, and anyone loved it. And so I played for a school I went to school in Bloemfontein. I played rugby there. After school, I went to the army. I played rugby for the defense. Somewhere after the defense, I had 1 year of a bit of a break, and somewhere then I started playing a little bit more serious rugby. I got picked up to move to Italy, of all places, when I was 22 years old, and absolutely loved Italy. I actually fell in love with Italy. I almost stayed there. I was there for 3 seasons, 3 years, learned to speak Italian, which I'm a little bit rusty now, but I still try to speak to my friends as much as I can in Italy. And I came back at 25, and that's where my serious rugby career started. I started playing for the Free State Cheetahs for 2-3 years. I, after that, moved to the Sharks, Lions first, 1 year, 1999. And in 2000, I moved to the Sharks, which became the biggest part of my career. About 8 years, 9 years, and I had my very last year. I retired at 34. I announced my retirement, and Rassie was then the coach of Western Province, and Rassie and I played together. We're the same age. We played together in Free State when we were 22 years old, and he heard that I'm retiring, and he said, no ways, you come to me. I've got a young Western Province side. and I need an older guy. I know you're broken. All I need from you is you come to training Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You go sit in the gym and you can stand aside the field. I want you in one training on Thursday and you play on Saturday. And I thought that's a great deal. So for my whole last year, I basically only trained on a Thursday and played on a Saturday just to save the old body. And so that was my last year. So that's just a brief overview of my career.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, a lot of rugby. So it will definitely be interesting to hear how you went into the corporate space. I've never mentioned to you, AJ, and I don't know why, but my great grandfather was captain of the Springboks, Barry Heatley, and he came up with the green and gold colors. So
no way, that's amazing.
A little bit, yeah. So fantastic to hear. I mean, I'm sure everybody asks you to speak Italian as well whenever they hear that. So I won't ask you to do that. But maybe...
No, può chiedermi perché parlo abbastanza bene, allora ogni tanto mi chiedono digli qualcosa e lo dico.
Well, I wouldn't know if that was right, but sounded good.
I could lie to you.
So, AJ, I mean, you know, this long-standing career in rugby, after retiring and stepping into business, could you summarize the business or the industry sectors that you worked in after that?
Absolutely. So we'll get to the nitty-gritties, but it's never easy for sportsmen to move into business, and my story was no different. It was very difficult, but very good friend, a family member of mine, my stepbrother Martin Venter, who's the developer of Valdavi in the Cape and the owner of Valdavi. When I had my last year, he got me an opportunity at Absa Wealth. Absa, one of our biggest banks in South Africa, and I really had no idea. I had no degree. I was 35 years old. Limited experience in the boardroom or in business, and I started with Absa Wealth, and we'll go into the detail later. So for a few years I was at Absa Wealth. Basically my role as a new business developer, so with the connections I've made in rugby, I basically had to open the doors for the guys, the project teams and the investors. After Absa, I had a stint at Old Mutual, Private Client Securities, for a few years. And between then and my roles now, I had one or two opportunities, roles where I went on my own, learned a lot of lessons, lost a lot of money. So my business career has been ups and downs, like every entrepreneur out there, but a lot of lessons learned along the way.
Yeah. Wow, I didn't know you were at Absa Bank. That's very interesting. So you were pretty much thrown in the deep end completely into that.
Absolutely. I had no idea. Like I remember my interview with one of the top guys at the bank, and they said to me, like, what do you know? I said, look, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't have a degree in finance. I've got limited knowledge of finance, but I would like you guys to teach me as much as you can. I would like to leave here one day having learned everything I can about the bank and about finance. And in return, I will bring people into the door. I'll open doors. I'll connect people so that you know your guys can do the projects. And that's literally what got me into the job. Just to say, right, honestly, this is what I can bring. I can't bring that, but I'll bring this for you. And that's where my whole, it's like still now I do business development, and that role started then. And I didn't even know that that's a role. I didn't even know that's an opportunity for me. It started accidentally, and I've grown that thing over the years into something that, luckily for me, there's people that feel that there's value in that thing that I bring.
Yeah, there's net worth in your network, right?
Correct.
That's
Correct.
what you the table. I suppose it's your brand, kind of helped you in getting that position at ABSA. So you did have a name for yourself. A lot of people don't have that, but I think that's where the advantage for you comes in, which is great. You need to use that. I want to know, AJ, considering that you were almost thrown in the deep end with this job at ABSA, and then over the years, how challenging was it transitioning from professional sports to business? And what would you say were your biggest challenges throughout that journey?
Yeah, it was very hard. I'll maybe just touch on something that not a lot of people maybe know, but a lot of people here would remember 2008. 2008, there was a credit crunch, and the whole world changed. And 2005, while I was still playing rugby, I got involved in a piece of land with 3 other investors. Not a small, not like for a hotel piece in an estate. And before we could go to market, 2008 came and everything dried up. So no sales. And literally we tried to keep that alive for a few years until eventually the banks came, because we signed surety for the land. And so in 2009, I retire. And in 2012, 13-ish, the banks came for the money. And so now I've saved my whole life in rugby, and in 2012, 13, the bank came and took everything, and I had to literally start again. So that was tough, that was difficult, but apart from that, the challenge for sportsmen, and this is not everyone, this is my story, but I think there are a lot of sportsmen that relate to my story, is that you start as a young man, and all of a sudden you play the sport, you are lifted to a level, you earn a certain amount of money, and there comes a time when you retire, when you've now spent 10, 12 years playing rugby, and now you step into the business world, and you don't just step laterally like this or up. Most players steps down. You step down into your role, into your work. You are now, your peers, people that went to school with you, have now worked for 10, 12, 13 years, and they are in leadership roles, and they understand their business, and they understand what they need to do. You don't. So you step down, not only in finances, but you step down in knowledge, and that comes down to self-confidence, possibly even. Like you're not going to start from fresh. It's a very difficult thing to do. It's also coming from a sport that's in the limelight, and you're placed kind of on a pedestal, and now you've got to come down and you've got to work hard again. So that challenge there is not easy. Like I said, some players have it different, they have it easier, but I would say the biggest part of professional sportsmen go through this, where you've got to step out, step down, and now you got to start again. But what's happened at this level here, when you've stepped out, do you use everything that you've learned in your previous career in order to try and reach that level again? And so that's what we'll talk about.
100%. I can completely agree with that. Even on my side, coming from education, teaching young children, to then having to go into this world of trade and investment between South Africa and Singapore. And obviously my love for South Africa runs deep. I'm passionate about my country, so I think that's what kind of guided me on the journey. But I did feel like I just went completely down, and I could see everybody else around me has also built up their businesses, they've built their knowledge. So I can resonate with that completely. And then, touching on sort of that journey and being a pro sportsman for 15 years, and then you became a businessman for 16 years. maybe we can dive into the parallels between the two and unpack them a little bit.
Sure. Thank you. So what I'm going to do is, so this for me is the important bit and the crux of it, and I'm going to break it down in two pieces. I'm going to break it down in first on a personal level. So what are the and again, this is just me in my past and my experiences. Again, it could be different for other sportsmen. This is not set in stone, but I'm going to start with on a personal level. For me, the first thing is you've got to absolutely love what you do. Now, I'm saying that because my whole life playing rugby, that was never a work. It was never a job. It was never something that I had to wake up and think, oh my goodness, I've got to go to work today. It started with me playing touch rugby when I was 6 years old. The next thing I was playing for the Springboks at 25. Of course, a lot of things come in between, but you've got to love what you do. And in business, I feel, and I say this because I've had roles where I didn't enjoy what I do. And I know there's a lot of people out there in the world that they do a job, they've got a role, and they're in a place where they don't enjoy. And that's very difficult to, from there, achieve success. You've got to at least at the base level enjoy what you do, both in sport and in business. The second thing on a personal level is you must know what you do. Now, again, I can, if I look at rugby, I'm naturally gifted in a few things. I'm tall. I mean, so I can play rugby. I've played it my whole life. You know the old story about 10,000 hours. I've done it. I've played that ball my whole life. And so I know that game. When I retired, I mean, it's like any other international player. You understand everything about that game, about your peers, about the opponents, about the rules. You live that game. And that's the same in business. It has to be the same in business. And that's kind of what I took over as well, is that every time that I take a role or a new position, I've got to make sure that I absolutely understand everything about that role and about what I've got to do to make that a success. If I sit in a meeting and I don't really know what to say, then that's a problem. Then it'll come across that way as well. So you've got to, you must know what you do in business and in sport. And the last thing is just, and this is a cliche, but if you've got those two things in place, the last thing is just you've got to put the extra work in. And then Elon Musk always say, he always say this, and a lot of people hate Elon, and a lot of people love Elon at this moment. But he always say that you've got to work more than the person sitting in the cubicle next to you. And that's for if you're an entrepreneur, if you work for someone, the person that puts in the more time will be the person that ultimately reached more success. That and in sport, for example, you'll hear so many stories of guys, kickers, for example, that when everyone has got their team things done and dusted, you'll get some guys go to do another hour of kicking. You get some guys to go another hour of gym, forwards possibly, and et cetera, et cetera. So you've got to put extra in, and that is exactly the same in business. In my world, I try not to have an 8 to 5 job. I mean, I sit at 8 and I go to 5, but if things go over into the night, or if it's got to start early in the morning, for me, that's part and parcel of my role. It can't be just a normal working day. So those are the three things on a personal level that I believe between sport and rugby are all the same in order to reach success. Now, if we park the individual or the personal level as a team or as a company, as a group of people, there are also a few things that you got to do. So I feel it's important to, let's first go rugby as a team. You've got to have a leader with a clear vision. Now, I'll use again Rassie as an example. For those people that are here that are not rugby followers, Rassie is our national coach. In our opinion, one of the best out there. And Rassie has got the ability, we all know that he's got a great vision. He understands the sport. But then from there, how do you take that vision? How do you make sure that every player on the field understand that vision so that they can carry that vision out as a team and not as individuals? And I feel Rassie, he's got that ability. He's got the ability to transfer that vision to the players and get everyone to buy in, whether it's his personality or whatever that is. I feel he's got that. Now, I feel in the business that I've been, whenever there's been a leader that possibly don't have a vision, or he's got a vision but doesn't know how to transfer or relate that vision to the team, I feel there's always a connection lost there. So I feel that's quite important. Apart from having a leader with a vision, I feel like you need to have, and again, if it's a small business, it's a little bit different, but if it's bigger businesses, it's like a rugby team. And in rugby, for example, you've got a coach, you've got a captain, but the captain necessarily on the field in the 18 minutes when we play, he doesn't necessarily make all the calls. Everything doesn't surround him. In rugby, you'll have the captain and you'll have a leader in the pack. You'll have a leader in the loose forwards. You'll have a leader in the back line, and you might have a leader in the back three. And all these leaders have to be able to step up in that 80 minutes of action in order to relay to, I always call it the youngsters, because you always have a group of young people in a rugby team that need absolute certainty from the people they look up to. I'll use an example, and for the people that don't know it as well, there's a guy called Os Durant, a rugby legend in South Africa. So when I played for the Springboks as a young guy, when I ran onto the field, and on that side the All Blacks were standing, but I'm standing next to Os Durant here, it made me feel incredibly comfortable. Now, he didn't have to say a word, he didn't have to do anything, but his history and his story and respect I have for him brought me absolute calmness. Now, in a business, I believe there's no difference. I believe when there's new, younger blood coming into a business and you've got solid leadership, not only the captain, coach, but also these other people that uplift all the younger players, all of a sudden you've got this strong network within your business. So for me, that's something also that's very important in a team. And then the last thing that I would add for a team is, and a business, is it's sometimes better, or it's not always the best having the best player, but it's sometimes better having the best player for the team. Now, what do I mean by that? So in sport, and we all know these, I don't have to mention names, but we know these players where you've got a player that is absolutely physically the fastest, the best in a position, but that player might be disruptive in the team. He might be negative. He might be whatever that thing is that forms a bit of a cancer, for a better word. And is it sometimes better to let that guy out and put in another player that's not as good, but is better for the team around him? And I've seen this in business as well. Over the last few years being in business, you get people in a company that are not necessarily doing the best thing to drive the business forward. So sometimes it's better having a player that's better for the business and not the best for the business. If that makes any sense, I hope that makes sense. I feel like I've explained it badly. So that's, for me, that really those are the parallels that I've learned in sport and that I'll focus on now in my business.
Thanks, AJ. Yeah, I think everyone can relate to that, right? So specifically on leadership skills, communication is key. And that's something you obviously had to learn very quickly, right? Because otherwise nothing will happen within the team, right? If you can't communicate effectively. And I think for me as well, that's something that I've taken from being an educator and coming into the corporate space, is that over communicate instead of under communicate, because then there's no, there can be misunderstandings or miscommunications, but you make sure that everything is clear in what you say and how you delegate to people, which is important. And the leadership style that you have, AJ, sounds great. I mean, I think more people could adopt it, to be honest. You know, you see it in a lot of these women in business talks, and it would be great to really implement some of these skills that you're speaking about within the corporate space to really encourage people to grow and develop. And I think that's what you're doing, right? You're with your team players. So maybe, you know, if you could tell us if you have, you know, any thoughts or views on how you would, like a tactic of identifying key team players, their strengths, and harnessing them in the corporate space.
Yes, good question. So again, I think I'll start with rugby again. If you're a coach and if you've got to identify players, again, the first number one thing is you've got to be a coach that know the sport. You've got to know the game. If you don't know that, you can't find the right people. So you've got to know the game, know the sport, and then you can find the right players. In sport, there's a big community of what sports agents, and those guys are integral in a coach finding the right talent. And again, in sport, it's always better finding the talent younger, because you pay less and you can grow them. So it's sometimes you have to buy the experienced guys at a premium, but it's always nice to find players at a young age. And in my humble opinion in business, it's possibly the same. If you know what you're doing, if you know your business, if you know what you want, and if you can find talent that can be brought into your business at a level where where they understand enough about the business, and then grow them in the business, I feel that's the best. And of course, I'm going to say, because we in that space, if you've got connection to the right recruiters, it's worth gold, because like people like us, we're in the game, we know what's going on, we know it's out there. So like a sports agent, if you've got the right recruiters on your side, it could immensely benefit your business. Yeah, I would say that's about the view I've got on that.
Yeah, I agree. The recruitment side of things is very important. You can't miss that. I think the amount of businesses that I've come across that have not gone through the proper recruitment agencies, they've struggled with their staff, right? But also finding youth is really important. So youth empowerment, specifically in South Africa, there's this new generation that's coming up, really knowledgeable, really enthusiastic, eager to work. I mean, Simon, had the privilege of chatting to, I don't know how young the ladies were, but a group of ladies from South Africa and telecom industry. And they were, very eager to learn about Singapore and what they're doing in Singapore on the telecom side of things. So, yeah, I mean, definitely look at your youth, the strong, the capable, the enthusiastic, the driven ones. And, if we talk about youth and young entrepreneurs, maybe, AJ, if you could give advice for people stepping into a new career, which is completely different to what they normally know.
Yes, and I'm a professional in that. Like I said, I have had the challenge of moving from sport to business, but even within business, in the 16 years, I have moved once or twice. And firstly, it is challenging. Like, it is very challenging. I think the biggest thing is for people, right in the beginning, I said sometimes people sit in a role or in a business where they're not really happy, they don't really enjoy it, but they just don't know how to get out, because possibly the finance of that opportunity is good, and it's difficult to leave that, but they sit in that. So, and a lot of the time, the challenge there is the unknown, is just to step out and just to do it. Of course, people have got families to look after, etc. So you got to make sure that finances are in place. But I feel the biggest challenge for people is just to make the step. And I've done it a few times, and if it always works out for the better if you really push and if you really work hard at it. I think it's more challenging making the step than actually getting to the other side of the step and starting with your new venture. Once you're on the other side, I'd like to refer back to the previous points I made about, then it's upon yourself, right? It's upon yourself to make sure you know that business or that game. It's up to you to hopefully you do it because you love that game, right? With the first point, you gotta love what you do. Learn as much as you can about that role or that business, and number 3, just that's it. Foot to the pedal in the bottom and work as hard as you can. I believe everyone can do it, but I think the biggest thing is making that first step, because it's challenging. Like it's a stressful situation.
Yeah, and maybe to connect with people like yourself who have started businesses, to share ideas and to actually give them a little bit more confidence to take that next step out of their comfort zone.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, so sorry, I think there are so much out there currently in terms of information. I mean, the internet is incredible. AI currently, chat, information is at the tips of our fingers. There really isn't an excuse if someone wants to go anywhere and they don't know the information not to find out. We can find out information like this these days, and we should use that. We should use this incredible burst of information availability we've got currently to reach what we want to reach, to reach those goals and go forward.
Yeah, I agree. The AI technology is just, I think it's built my current career, to be honest. I mean, it's helped a lot. When you are sitting with mundane admin tasks, that's where you're saving time and essentially you save money. So make use of those platforms, right?
Yeah.
And I think on the, this getting out of your comfort zone, that's where you learn, right? And failure is where you learn. You have to fail to learn. So I think that's a lot of people struggle with that, in my opinion, but I think that's good advice, and just connecting with other individuals on this topic. So something else, AJ, that I wanted to chat to you about, which is close to my heart, and we're actually doing an event this Thursday in Singapore on this sort of on mental health. I think it's important to look at it. It is becoming more of an awareness, I think, definitely in South Africa and Singapore. So because rugby is physically demanding and corporate is mentally exhausting, how would you say you maintain balance and avoid burnout?
Yeah, good question. Again, let me do the same as all the other questions. Let me go back to rugby. As a professional player at that level, you literally train a whole day. I mean, you've got a gym session and a line-out session and a scrum session, and then you've got 2-3 hours analyzing with the team on the upcoming game, and then this, and so you are literally with the team training, exercising physically and mentally for a full day. Sometimes it goes from 7 to 6. Sometimes it's just a normal working day. And in order to physically be ready on a Saturday, you've got to do your ice baths, you've got to do your physio, you've got to do your strapping, you've got to make sure that your nutritional intake is optimal, because your body is gold for that role. And so if you take that and you flip it into business, long hours, constantly you have to think and work and strain your brain. what would that look like to look after that? I would say is look after sleep. I'd say sleep is very, very important. My wife is a well sought after dietitian in South Africa, and she always talks about sleep. Sleep's very important. You've got to look after what you take into your body. I mean, I don't think we put enough focus on, and this might sound totally ludicrous, but for business people to have to focus on what they put into their body, because at the end of the day, this and this works well if you look after it, and looking after it means sleeping well, eating well. And one thing that I found when I was going through a very tough time, when I lost all the money, I found it very comforting being able to practice, gym, run, train. That probably was one of the biggest things that helped me with the stress and the fatigue of that time period. So I feel you've got to look after this first, and this will look after the rest, whether it's sport or whether it is business, because I mean, ultimately, your mind is only as good as you allow it to be.
Exactly. No, I agree 100%. That's something that I try to practice as well, and I've seen a lot of research done on the gut health, the link from the gut health to your mental acuity. So it is extremely important: nutrition, exercise, sleep. But I think not all people have the luxury of those things, right?
Yeah. I will add one thing. And again, this is only my personal experience when I went through a tough time, is it is very good if you've got friends, 1, 2, or 3, or 4, or 5 good friends who you can talk and share with. It's very helpful if keeping something within yourself, thinking about stress all on your own, all by yourself. It's not the answer. I think if you can, and again, like you say, not everyone has that, but if you've got family members around you or friends around you that you can just sometimes go and talk to and offload. If you don't have that, it might be worth chatting to a psychologist. It's something that I did for a few years after the troubled times, and I found it very healing and very supportive for my mind.
Yeah, and there's different types of therapy that you can work with, right? There's so many. Might not be talking. It might be some other form of therapy, and that's important. They say that actually you should spend 8 minutes a day speaking to someone you love or a friend, because it actually helps, pump your endorphins. And I believe in that. So that's great advice. I think, if everybody could, they would try and do these things, but I would say start off minimalistic, improve your life one step at a time. Maybe nutrition comes first, maybe sleep comes later, or maybe sleep comes first. Do small things to improve your life, and it's important to have that time. Otherwise, burnout's inevitable. So AJ, I wanted to touch on something that I thought was quite relevant. We were discussing this during the planning for this webinar, is that last year we brought a delegation of women in business. They were entrepreneurs, SMMEs coming to Singapore to explore, engage with other businesses, potentially find, someone to grow into a venture with or investment. And the thing that I noticed that was a challenge for a lot of the delegates, and this can't be taught, right, is how to network. I mean, Simon is our best networker in the room. He's at all the events, and being a chamber, that's what the platform is used for. You need to network to help grow your business. It's important. So what advice would you give, and how was your journey coming into the corporate space and having to see that you need to network? Because I'm sure as a rugby player, everybody came up to you. You didn't need to go to anyone to find out about their business, see if there's a business connection. So was that a difficult transition, or do you have any advice?
Yes, absolutely. So it's one word, rejection. It's the biggest thing. There is, for me, I'm a pretty proud person, and like you said, playing rugby, it was the other side. People come to you. They come to you for the autographs. They come to you for that. And all of a sudden, I had to go and ask. All right. Again, remember in the beginning, I said you step from year to year, and that was one of the biggest things for me is facing with rejection, because not every person I'm going to speak to is going to want to hear what I've got to say, or is going to need my service. And even if that is legit, that he doesn't want to deal with me, in my mind, he's rejecting me. I mean, and sometimes it goes for days when you reach out to people and they reject you. And that's a tough thing to stomach. So my advice to people that are starting out in this role that I'm doing is, as quick as you can, deal with it, get over it. It's going to happen a million times over again. And I mean, I'm in a place now where I've got apologies. I've got my day is planned out. I know exactly how many times I'm going to reach out to people, and I know exactly how many times those people, sorry, apologies, are going to not respond, or some are going to respond. And then from there, I know how many people are going to agree for a meeting. And so you kind of make peace with the fact that this is what you have to do, and you've just got to keep on going. So it is not an easy thing. For some people, it's natural. In the old days, I don't know if you remember this, but in the old days, you were going to a function, and your upline would say to you, right, I need 20 business cards at the end of the night, or tomorrow you need to come show me your 20 business cards, and you need to, crawl the room and speak to people, and that's difficult. But on the other hand, those people standing there are just there also to network. Everyone, not everyone, but most people are open to a chat or network if it comes in friendly, if it comes in the right tone and text. So I would just say to people, just start, deal with the rejections quickly, and things will get better.
Yeah, they always say what you're going to get 100 no's before you get one yes.
Correct.
I think that was actually what happened to the founder of Canva, which now I think everybody knows what that is, right?
Yes.
I've got a question come in from, thanks, Jason. He's asking, do you know any of the rugby unions or sports bodies that have programs to assist players in the transition from retirement to business or other careers? And if not, is there an opportunity to create something, particularly for the fringe players that don't have big contracts? This could be business skills support or even mental health support to deal with the transition.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Good question. Yes, there are. Most rugby unions and professional teams have got that in place. Some better than other, like anything. I know the Sharks have got like extensive plans in place, or courses in place. We are actually, as ex-players at the Sharks, we part of it as well. So myself and another ex-player my age, we got one Sharks player. And so every now and then, every 3-4 months, we'll meet with the Sharks player, and we will just talk about business. He might have business questions. It is just a business forum. And he might have questions about business. We might just talk about what we do. And so there are many of these bodies and support systems. But I suppose there are always, place for more, Jason. But the biggest thing here is the player has to, and I'm going to go back to my life again, guys. The player has to want to learn. He has to want to get better. It's very difficult at that stage. When you're 22, 23, 25, you play for the Sharks, you are a legend in your own life, you earn good money. And it's not often that players understand and realize that there's a life coming, a different life coming in 10 years. So ultimately, a lot of these programs are there, but players don't all use it, and they don't really get the value from it, just because you're young. And in my life, I've had a few opportunities like that, and I'll quickly share something with you. You all know well. When I was playing for the Springboks, we used to go to the UK, France, and on a Thursday before test, there was always a big event, a big gala, and we were in London. And what happens is they obviously sell the tables, and each table get a Springbok, and it's something. It's not always a nice thing, because you got to sit and talk to people that you don't know, but it's one of those things. So when you arrive at the event, you switch on and off you go and you do your thing. And I remember sitting at a table with people, and to the right of me was an elderly couple, and I was talking to the people, and at the end of the day, end of the evening, the elderly man next to me gave me his business card and said, I liked what you've said tonight. Of course, we're talking about business. I said, I want to be successful and I'm going to learn. And he said, I like what you said. If ever you need anything, here's my card. And I took the card, put it in my pocket, and I went to the hotel. And getting to the hotel, I looked at the card and it said Raymond Ackerman. Now, Raymond Ackerman is the CEO at the time. Pick n Pay was one of the biggest businesses in South Africa. And believe it or not, I lost the card that next morning. We packed and we left, and I never took Raymond Ackerman's card. Raymond Ackerman said to me, I like what you are saying. If ever you need something in business, call me. And I didn't make an effort to keep that card, to call him the next day and use that opportunity. So my point, going back to my point, is it's sometimes difficult when you are that age and life is a bit different. But yeah, there are many of those things, Jason.
Have you managed to contact him since then?
No, I haven't.
No,
I haven't.
still
I've
not.
forgotten
Okay.
to it.
I think we should make that your mission, AJ, just to catch up with him. That's such a good question. Thanks, Jason, and thanks for joining online. So we have run out of time. If there are any last questions, just raise your hand or put in the chat. But maybe, AJ, you want to just give closing, takeaways from this session, if that's all right.
Yeah, sure. No, I just firstly, thank you to you, Kerry. Thank you for setting this up, and everyone involved with your group. Yes, everything I mentioned today really is just, it might mean nothing, but that's just the things that I've learned in my career. And I wish everyone success in their roles and in their businesses. At Vanloq, we are quite excited. We are a startup. We are based in Edinburgh, and everything again we spoke about now, I'm actually going through again by building this business. And keep an eye for us. Keep an eye out for us on the business world, in the business world going forward, because we are going to make it. We're going to take it all the way. Thank you very much.
Thanks, AJ. Yeah, definitely. Excited about our journey with Purview as well. So we're here to support businesses and support each other. Thank you so much for the session today, AJ. I really appreciated it. It was actually very personally fulfilling for myself, because being able to hear these insights and resonate with so much of what you were saying. So really appreciate it. You're amazing. And thank you everyone for taking the time today. I know webinars are sometimes a bit cliche, but this one I thought was really good, and you will get the recording after the event. So next week I'll send out the recording link, and you'll also get AJ's details and some details if you need to contact Purview as well. And don't forget to follow the chamber on LinkedIn and check out our website on www.sacham.sg. You'll find some more insightful sharing sessions like the one we did with Simon. I think it was last year, actually. So yeah, thank you so much and have a great week, everybody.
Thank you so much, Kerry. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, AJ. Thanks, Kerry.
Thanks, AJ.
Thank you, AJ. Thank you, Kerry.
Thanks,
Take care.
guys. Bye.
Mooi blije groet, hè?
Cheers, Albert.
I'll just end the session then. Thanks, eh?
Okay. Thanks, Kerry. Cheers. Bye.